Somewhere, deep underground, something was hiding. It had no fame, no fans, no name anyone remembered. But one day, this quiet little thing would become one of the most powerful foods on Earth. It would feed armies, it would build empires. And then, in one horrifying moment, it would betray millions of people who trusted it the most. This is not just a story about food. This is a story about fame, secrets, obsession, and a fall so dark that entire nations still feel it today. Before we go further, we have to ask one question. Where did this humble little thing actually come from? The answer will surprise you, because deep in the mountains of South America, thousands of years ago, someone made a discovery that changed the world forever. And almost nobody talks about how strange it really was. High in the Andes Mountains, over 7,000 years ago, ancient farmers found something odd growing in the cold, thin soil. It was small, lumpy, and strange looking. Some early forms were even bitter, even a little dangerous to eat raw. But these farmers didn't give up. They experimented. They froze it, dried it, and studied it for generations until they turned it into something safe and powerful. Food that could survive brutal winters when nothing else could. This wasn't just farming. This was survival science. Centuries before modern labs existed, the potato became sacred to these communities. It was worshipped, buried with the dead, and used in ceremonies. But here's the unsettling part. For thousands of years, almost no one outside these mountains knew this powerful food existed. It was a secret, hiding in plain sight. And that secret was about to be discovered by outsiders who had no idea what they were about to unleash. In the 1530s, Spanish explorers marched into South America searching for gold and treasure. They found empires, temples, and riches beyond imagination. But almost by accident, they also found the potato. At first, nobody thought it mattered. It wasn't shiny. It wasn't valuable. It looked like dirt. The explorers packed it onto their ships almost as an afterthought, tossed in with the real treasure. They had no idea what they were really carrying home. When their ships landed back in Europe, something strange began to happen. This worthless root started spreading quietly from port to port, garden to garden. Nobody celebrated it. Nobody trusted it. In fact, many people were terrified of it because in 1500s, Europe, whispers began to spread. Whispers that this strange new food wasn't a gift at all. Some believed it was something far more sinister, something cursed. You'd think a food that could end hunger would be welcomed with open arms. Instead, Europe rejected the potato with fear and disgust. Many people believed it caused leprosy. Others thought it was poisonous, since it belongs to the same plant family as deadly nightshade. Religious leaders even claimed it was cursed because it wasn't mentioned in the Bible. In France, growing potatoes was banned by law for decades. Farmers who tried faced real punishment. Can you imagine? A food that would later save millions of lives was once treated like a criminal. For over 200 years, the potato sat in the shadows, unwanted, misunderstood, practically homeless in the same soil that would one day depend on it completely. But every downfall story needs a turning point. And for the potato, that turning point came from one unexpected man, a prisoner who would trick an entire country into loving what they once feared. His name was Antoine Augustin Parmentier, a French army pharmacist captured during war and held prisoner in Prussia. While imprisoned, he was forced to survive on nothing but potatoes. He expected to suffer. Instead, he grew stronger and healthier. When he returned home to France, he became obsessed with one mission: convincing his country that the food they feared could actually save them. But the French still wouldn't listen. So Parmentier came up with a strange, clever plan. He planted potato fields and then hired guards to protect them during the day, making the crop look valuable and important. But at night, he secretly ordered the guards to disappear. Curious villagers, believing the crop must be precious, snuck in and stole the potatoes for themselves. It was psychological manipulation, centuries before marketing even existed, and it worked better than anyone could have imagined. The trick worked so well that even royalty, took notice. Queen Marie Antoinette became fascinated by the potato, so much that she began wearing potato flowers in her hair at royal events. King Louis XVI reportedly wore one on his jacket. Suddenly, something once considered dirty and dangerous became fashionable among the wealthiest people in France. It's almost hard to believe, but true. The very food peasants were once punished for growing was now being celebrated by royalty. But history has a cruel sense of irony, because not long after the potato found glamour and fame in the French court, the very people who made it fashionable would face their own devastating downfall, one soaked in blood and betrayal. Meanwhile, across the sea, the potato was about to find its true home, a place that would embrace it more deeply than anywhere else on Earth. But that love story would end in horror. The potato found its truest home in Ireland. The cool, damp Irish climate turned out to be perfect for growing it. Within a few generations, potatoes became the backbone of Irish life. Families could grow huge amounts of food on tiny plots of land. Populations grew rapidly. Children who once faced starvation now had full stomachs. By the early 1800s, millions of Irish families depended on one single crop for almost every meal, sometimes eating little else but potatoes, day after day, year after year. It seemed like a miracle. The poor nation had found a way to survive and thrive, but there was a dangerous secret hiding beneath this success story, one nobody could see coming. Because when an entire nation puts all its trust, all its survival into one single crop, it only takes one thing going wrong to bring the whole system crashing down. In the summer of 1845, something strange began appearing in Irish potato fields. Healthy green plants suddenly turned black and shriveled within days. Farmers dug into the soil expecting food and instead found rotting, foul-smelling mush. Nobody understood what was happening. There were no scientists rushing in with answers, no warnings on the news, just fear spreading from village to village as families watched their only food source collapse before their eyes. This wasn't just a bad harvest. This was the beginning of one of the most devastating tragedies in modern history. A mysterious disease, later identified as a type of water mold, was silently destroying the very crop an entire nation depended on to survive, and it was only getting started. What happened next would change Ireland forever, and the world would watch in horror as millions of people faced an impossible choice. The disease returned again and again, year after year, wiping out crop after crop. Families who had trusted the potato with their lives now watched it fail them completely. This event became known as the Great Famine, and what followed was almost unimaginable. Over 1 million people died from starvation and disease. Entire villages were left silent and empty. But here's the part that still makes people angry today. During the famine, Ireland was still exporting other food, like grain and livestock, to other countries, while its own people starved. Many historians call this a man-made tragedy as much as a natural one. The potato didn't just fail Ireland. In many ways, Ireland's leaders failed its people, and the devastation was so severe that it forced over 1 million desperate families to do something drastic. They had to leave everything behind and flee their homeland forever. Ships packed with starving, exhausted families left Ireland by the thousands. Many of these vessels were so overcrowded and disease-ridden that people began calling them coffin ships, because so many passengers never survived the journey. Those who did make it landed in places like Boston, New York, and Liverpool, arriving with nothing but grief and hope. This single event, caused by the mysterious downfall of one small crop, permanently reshaped entire nations. Irish-American culture, so deeply woven into U.S. history today, exists largely because of this tragedy. It's strange to think that so much of American history was shaped by something as small as a rotting potato. But the story doesn't end with tragedy, because while Ireland was suffering its darkest chapter, the potato itself was quietly building a second life, a redemption arc, one that would eventually make it one of the most trusted foods on the planet. After the horror of the famine, you might expect the potato to be abandoned forever. Instead, something unexpected happened. Scientists and farmers around the world studied what went wrong and worked to prevent it from happening again. New potato varieties were developed that were stronger and more resistant to disease. Farming techniques improved slowly, carefully. Trust began to rebuild. By the late 1800s, the potato was spreading into new countries, feeding growing populations across Europe, Asia, and North America. It became a staple in kitchens everywhere, quiet, reliable, and humble once again. But fame has a funny way of returning in unexpected forms. Because in the 20th century, the potato was about to become something nobody in the Andes Mountains ever could have imagined. A pop culture icon, showing up in fast food chains, kitchen tables, and even television screens across America. By the mid-1900s, the potato had transformed completely. French fries became a fast food obsession. Potato chips became a snack aisle staple. TV dinners featured mashed potatoes as the ultimate comfort food. For families growing up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, the potato wasn't just a vegetable anymore. It was nostalgia on a plate. It was Sunday dinners, backyard barbecues, and late-night snacks shared with people we love. Nobody sat around the table thinking about famine or fear. The dark chapters of its past were long forgotten, buried under crispy golden fries and warm mashed potatoes. But here's something almost nobody realizes today. Even now, in modern farming, the potato is still surprisingly vulnerable, still capable of failing on a massive scale if we're not careful. Because history has a habit of repeating itself when we forget the lessons it tried to teach us. Even today, most of the world's potato farms grow only a small handful of varieties. That means a new disease could threaten the global supply again, just like it did in Ireland in the 1840s. But here's a secret most people never think about. The potato isn't just one food. It's part of a massive, hidden family. Deep in Peru, scientists protect over 4,500 different potato varieties. Some tiny and purple, some twisted and strange, almost unrecognizable. These forgotten cousins may hold the genetic keys to preventing another disaster. And the potato's redemption doesn't stop on Earth. In 1995, it became the first vegetable ever grown in space, tested by NASA as a possible food source for future missions to Mars. A crop once feared and banned was now helping humanity reach other planets. But even with all that glory, one haunting question about its darkest chapter still remains unanswered. Historians still debate hard questions about the Irish famine. Could more lives have been saved if food exports had stopped? Did political decisions make the disaster worse than the disease itself? These aren't just historical arguments. They're questions about power, responsibility, and who gets left behind in a crisis. In many ways, this was never just a story about a vegetable. It's a story about fear, trust, betrayal, and survival. Today, the potato is the fourth most important food crop on Earth, feeding over 1 billion people, grown on every continent except Antarctica. Few foods or even few celebrities have lived through such a dramatic rise, fall, and comeback. So the next time you see a potato sitting quietly on your plate, remember this: it shaped nations, caused heartbreak, and even traveled to space. Sometimes, the biggest mysteries in history aren't hiding in palaces. Sometimes they're hiding right in front of us, waiting to be dug up. That's the real history of the potato, a story far darker, stranger, and more human than most people ever imagined. From humble Inca potatoes grown in silence high in the Andes, to fame across royal Europe, to the heartbreak of the Irish potato famine, this potato origin story proves that even the most ordinary things can hide extraordinary secrets. If this potato history documentary opened your eyes to the hidden origin of potatoes and how potatoes in Europe changed history forever, don't let this story end here.